Hello. Bl'Artagnan here with Triple Gateway, the Shadow CPU Raid Event Lufenia Plus. We are fighting a bunch of spheres, which is appropriate because spheres are kind of the hot topic of the day. Everyone cares about them a lot, possibly far too much, and I'm here to show you that spheres don't matter. Because these guys certainly are not a threat with this team. We got Sid Reigns, who I haven't gotten to use in a good long while, so this feels actually pretty good. I enjoy this guy. He's broken as hell, but he's also fun as hell. And we got Prompto, who is absolutely excellent in this fight, just in terms of satisfying the mechanics. And Kistis, who's going to be helping us out here and there just to kind of fill in the gaps. Before we get too deep into it, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, ring that notification bell. It makes a nice pleasant ding noise from what I understand. So what do we got going on here? So these orbs, this is a pretty interesting fight for me. I know it's not the hardest fight, we're slowly segueing into kind of easy fights, but it has some interesting mechanics you gotta kind of respect. The orb is an evade or defense ignore orb, which is kind of nifty. The defense ignore mainly just exists so that Shadow's free turns don't completely get you killed. The evade orb is the main one, and that's what Prompto's here to do, because the boss's only lethal attacks, aside from the orb itself, are all single targets, so you can just use a lock character with evade and dodge all their attacks and get through the orb. Shadow eating here, of course. The trick is, the big thing that I find challenging with this fight is the two side orbs. The A orb periodically does an AoE attack that debuffs everyone, which you can see there is just kind of annoying. It's a hindrance. It's an annoyance. We can get past it, but it's like, oh man, this sucks. The C orb, the healing orb, that's the problem orb, because that one will periodically heal all three bosses for 5% of their max health, and will also give a big speed and turn rate up brave regen buff to the bosses, and just make it all that hard to kill them, because now they're taking more turns faster, and you're slower because the debuffs that were put on you, and suddenly that C orb goes every other turn and is healing every other turn, and it can quickly become unsustainable. As luck would have it, we're not dealing with that here. I actually bought Kistis specifically because she can delay that C orb once it queues up the heal attack. You see there, it's queued up its heal move, it's targeting its buddies, and Kistis can go ahead and prevent C from ever taking another turn. Not that they're going to be taking a whole lot of turns from this point on. I'm going to probably let them take a couple just because it's ticking up the Kurasame debuff, and as you may have seen from other videos I've done, I sure do love just kind of manually ticking up that Kurasame debuff and getting as much value out of it as I can. Sure, I could have just, base called an LD, but I'm saving it for later, for a special occasion. It's a rainy day trick that we're keeping. It's the first time I've actually used Prompto in a Lufenia outside of his debut, and he's doing okay here. As I hoped, he's a solid role player who kind of fills certain gaps. I needed evade, I wanted defense ignore, and I wanted some auras to kind of fill in the blanks between Reigns and Kistis. And Prompto does that. He also takes nice pictures, which is handy. I hate taking pictures, but I love having access to, memories are important, but it's just a pain to oh, okay, well, I have to take myself out of this moment and experiencing this moment to remember it later. So having someone on hand who just handles that for me, my mom loves taking pictures, and I really appreciate that because it means I don't have to worry about it, but it's oh man, remember that trip we went on? Yeah, no, that was a great trip. You remember that beautiful waterfall we saw? Yeah, no, you mean this one? Yeah, that's a picture of it. I'm glad you had that. You see, that's great. Prompto's great because of stuff like that. Thanks, Prompto. And that was a weird tangent to go on, but it's not wrong. It's not untrue. So we are just kind of rainsing them. Reigns here is dope. More so than usual even, because they have no mitigation to deal with his bullshit. He cleanses to deal with their debuffs, he dispels to deal with their buffs, and his follow-up attack in the air ignores defense to deal with the orb. So, ignoring the fact that he does a bazillion damage, mostly single target, which is great, because you want to kill the middle guy before the side orbs, or you can technically kill one of the side orbs and then the middle, but if you kill both of the side orbs, you have a bad time. It's rough. You'll have a rough time of it if that happens. So I make a couple of scuffed decisions here and there in the fight. That I probably didn't need to use that LD HP plus attack there. But by this point in the fight, I was listening to the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album in the background while I was playing this. and the Really Trippy song came on. If you know that album, you know the one, the Really Trippy one. And I just kind of started zoning out while I was doing this fight, and as luck would have it, Reigns is still busted as hell. So I didn't need to really be thinking, but I definitely made a couple of questionable plays during the course of it as a result of, you know, the Beatles. Here is why we saved that Kurosame LD call, because now Prompto has enchanted the party with ice, giving us that weakness damage up, and is going to get passed between these two ranges like a hot potato, keeping that enchant on so we can deal maximum damage. My plan was to basically spend this entire summon doing Sid Reign's LD swaps, since you get bonus HP damage up in the Pandemonium summon. And so this just means even more damage. Even more damage. Look at all this damage. There we go. That's 1.3 million damage on the launch. That's just spectacular, superb. All sorts of tremendous superlatives we're bringing to this situation. This was the second time now that I used that LD HP plus free turn move that I really didn't need to use there, but like I said, the Beatles were just kind of jamming out in a sitar, and I was just really kind of feeling it. So I couldn't be bothered to really think of the optimum play there. I got my fancy Kurosame play in there where I save the LD and all that, and he's at 5 and 5 stacks of the HP damage up debuff, so it's just, you know, I'm not really thinking at this point. I'm just feeling in the moment, doing massive launches and having a great time. Let's see if we can't close this part of the fight out with this surprisingly shitty launch. I don't know. Oh, I needed to refresh. What happened there? I don't know. Something happened there, and I must have dropped all. That last launch was not impressive at all. But it's okay. I do need to refresh. The one thing with Reigns you have to remember is you have to refresh his skill 1 buff periodically. I let that one fall off. I knew. I didn't just Beatles my way to that one falling off on its own by mistake. That one was a very calculated one, but it's definitely happened where it's like, oh, Reigns didn't do his follow-up attack in the air because I doofed it. Never doof it if you can avoid it. Prompto, there we go. Unloading his LD. He's done his job here. He kept us alive during the orb stuff. Gave us some auras. It probably wasn't necessary here with, like, I feel like other characters could have slotted in there, but he did a fine job. And like I said, he also took a snapshot of the fight so that I don't need to remember it when I come back to him. Like, what was that fight where I used Reigns and Prompto? And he'll be like, here's a photo. Remember? It'll be a photo of one of these like orbs splatting against the wall. And I'll be like, oh yeah, good times. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and do one last free launch attack because, I mean, even with a shitty non-bandaried launch with Reigns, it's still like a 500,000 damage launch because of his dope-ass follow-up attacks. Let's get some free damage real quick with that Bronto LD call, just for funsies. And we're going to do one last big launch to try to kill A, or at least get him as close as we can before Reigns is gone. You remember, Reigns has an aura that gives the party HP damage up well in the air, so that double Reigns is doing good stuff there. Well, I guess we're just kind of trying to finish these guys off. There's nothing. I mean, at this point, the orb's gone. We've Keistis on the team, so these guys are taking no more turns. It's kind of elementary, as they say. There's not much to report from the rest of this fight. I think we have just a couple more turns of mandatory launches before we say sayonara to these spheres. You'll see they were completely unnecessary. Didn't really do anything. They didn't heal, which is important. Spheres only really matter if they heal. Shout out to Sayador Sphere. And as further evidence that spheres don't matter, you can see on Sid Reigns, I gave him a refined lion sphere, which had absolutely nothing to do with anything. It just was kind of a bad sphere that was just kind of sitting there. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.